Yo, thanks for checking out the video. Hugely appreciate it. I'm a small channel, so it means a lot. I just want to give my quick synopsis on each card revealed so far for Takir Dragonstorm. It looks like a cool set so far. There's obviously going to be more spoilers, but this should sort of set you up because we did see a lot of the heavy hitters. There's a lot of rares and mythics to talk about. There's even some uncommons and commons that I think will be pretty good. So hopefully it's an enjoyable video for you, and to just immediately start and not waste your time, we have Smile at Death. So it's cool to see a card, right? The title of this card is a subtitle of another, right? They should definitely do more of that. But what we have is a 5-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. There's a lot of that going on. And you do put a counter on each of those creatures. So if you build your deck in the right way, now notably Raise the Past, which we have, which has been doing a lot more work than people anticipated. This is on the curve directly after, so the rest of your curve besides these 2 cards, Raise the Past and Smile at Death, will just be a bunch of smaller creatures. And there's a lot of aristocrat decks that are making a name for themselves right now. So I can see this being pretty powerful, being that you can just do it over and over again. Very good, right? I think the counters aren't going to be super synergistic with the decks that want to play this, but it might help a little bit. But yeah, 5 mana is a little expensive for the speed of standard at the moment. But in Commander, this is an all-star, getting back some of your incredibly important pieces and whatnot. So yeah, definitely a cool card. Let's go to the next one. Now we have Sarkhan, Dragon Ascendant. When this enters, okay, so it's a 2-mana, 2/2 creature. It's a legendary. It's a human druid. It'd be really cool if this was a dragon type, but it does turn into a dragon, as you'll see. So you may behold a dragon if you do create a treasure token. So all you have to do is have a dragon on the field or one in your hand to get a free treasure token. So that's going to happen most of the time, right? Whenever a dragon you control enters, put a counter on this guy. He'll become a 3/3. Until end of turn, he will become a dragon and gain flying. So the fact that he becomes a dragon will enable a lot of synergistic dragon cards that we're getting in the set and that we already have. In Commander, this is probably an all-star. In Standard, I think this is one of the better versions of Sarkhan I've seen since I've started playing. Just having a 3/3 flyer every turn that also ramps you on turn 2 is pretty strong. I imagine the Dragon deck will be good, and we will have some more cards to talk about in a second. That will definitely convince you. Now, people have been going crazy over Stormscale Scion here. Other dragons you control, so 6 mana, 4/4 flying dragon. So nothing special there. It does give an anthem to other dragons, so not itself, but it does have Storm. So, okay, so here's the thing. A lot of people are freaking out, but I think this might be a little awkward for, again, the speed of Standard. In Commander, this is an all-star. But when you copy it, right, you just make a when you cast it, you make a copy of it for each spell you cast before. So you can ramp with this card, ramp right before you cast this card probably. At least get 1 or 2 copies doesn't seem impossible. So being that they buff each other, right, if you get 3 of this guy, then they'll all be 6/6s, right, because one copy will see the other 2. So 3 6/6s for a 6-mana investment feels good. It definitely remains to be seen if this will actually make a splash, though, so I don't want to comment too early on this one. Now we do have Barrensteppe Siege here. Now this is a little weird, but I do like the cycle of these cards where you choose Abzan, or you choose a 3-color tribal thing. Shard? No, that's 4 colors. Whatever these are called, don't hate me. But basically you choose one at the beginning of your end step. So if you choose Abzan, you get a counter on each creature. Okay, Mardu, at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Now that's probably a little bit better for Orzhov. You could be playing this in Abzan or Mardu, but if you heavily lean into Orzhov, the Mardu choice is a little better. Getting rid of their stuff, and once you do that, you can start choosing Abzan. So there's definitely synergy between the 2 modes. For 4 mana, I think it's actually kind of fine, right? Like, this is definitely playable. I think this would be super fun to build around for what that's worth. And in Commander, right, you get these huge boards. A counter each creature is good, man. Okay, So we definitely are going to run through all of them, but most of the heavy hitters are at the beginning. So hopefully you stick around a little while. For a Mardu casting cost +1 of any color, you get an instant that can't be countered. These are typically better than they look, especially for sideboards. And you exile any non-land permanent. Now, they take 3 and you gain 3. The fact that you gain 3 is pretty good, because a 4 mana removal is a little expensive for standard, but you do gain a little bit of life that might keep you alive one more turn if you're against a more aggro-centric deck. So, cool card here. Alrighty, up next, Ureni, we have Narset, the Jeskai Waymaster. So you get for Jeskai colors, you get a 3/4 legendary human monk. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, you draw cards equal to the number of spells you cast this turn. So not the number of cards you discarded, but the number of spells. Now, this is pretty good, being that if you cast a bunch of spells, then you won't really have cards in your hand. You could get rid of all of them. So if you discard your hand of 0, you'll still be able to draw 2 or 3, which is good. So these colors definitely give you a lot of options, too, for exactly this type of thing. I don't think this is an all-star. My first impression is this is, a little weird. I'm not sure if I'm keen on decks like this as much as others, but it's definitely a super fun build around. In Commander, I can see this being really, really powerful too. But in Standard, maybe not. I think it's just a little clunky, maybe. But still respectable. Now, this card people have been talking about, I see that it's a good card. So what you get for Jeskai colors and 2 more mana, you get a legendary Spirit Dragon. It's a 4/5 flying vigilance. Now that extra point of toughness there is good, right? You can get some flying damage in and block smaller guys, which is great. When it enters, you exile a target non-land card, CMC 3 or less. So any non-land card, so creatures, enchantments, there's tons of good 3-mana enchantments, for example, especially in white. You copy it, and then you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. The only real super downside is that, it leaves your graveyard, so you can't then get it back. You're exiling it, so you can't, recur it a second time later on. And it is only a one-time effect, but if you build your deck the right way, this can be super powerful, because you're establishing board presence, and you're getting something else that is tailor-made to help you even more. Right? So definitely a good card. I think better than the last one we looked at for Jeskai. Skirmish Rhino. So the little baby of Siege Rhino. This is okay. You get a 3/4 trampler, which is kind of awkward. It's not a huge attack stat, so the trample is a little awkward, but typically you'd have ways, especially in white and green, to buff your creatures. So the trample could be relevant if you're building your deck that way. And a little drain effect of 2 to the dome and 2 for us. So pretty good card. It's, I think in the 3-drop slot, there's so many good 3-drops right now, at least in Standard. I don't think this is going to be a commander card, really, but this one could be good if Abzan is a, top tier deck. This could be a good creature for it. It does force you to play those 3 colors, obviously, so we'll have to see on that one. I think the casting cost might be the more restrictive part. Okay, so we have a new Mox Ureni. So Mox Jasper. Yeah, this is new, right? 95% sure. You can add a mana of any color, but you can only do that if you have a dragon. It's a legendary artifact that you can cast for free. So if you do, even Sarkhan can turn into a dragon, right? So there's that 2-mana dragon we just got. There's also more 2 and 3-drop dragons. They're not as common as they probably should be, but this will help you ramp obviously very well because you don't have to pay a mana to cast it. So it's almost like laying 2 lands in one turn. So for that turn 3, 4, 5, this can be pretty explosive in a way. Oh my god, the I guess rarer version is $200. So this will obviously be great in Commander though. So not much more needs to be said. I think that most people know that this is good. Okay, so we're down to the Planeswalkers, and some of this art looks a little weird, but it is normal cards. It's not like an extended second set or anything. So, okay. Ugin has always been a notorious card for me in my play group, the 8-mana one, the exile It's basically like a cast of farewell type of situation for its minus. So when you cast this spell, you can exile up to one target permanent that's one or more colors. Now, of course, 95% of the decks you're against are going to have one or more colors. Well, maybe this card changes that. But so you exile something when you cast it, so you get some immediate value. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, which you will be doing in this deck, you can exile another permanent. So that's great because it's not like they get those back. It's just hard exile. That's good. It has a nice +2 that gains 3 life and draws a card, so keeping you alive. Notably, it doesn't have like a creature generation thing to protect it, but again, you are exiling things that could potentially damage it, so that's good. But the +2 is nice because you can much more easily get up to your -11 because you start at 7, right? And the 0 is huge. The 0 is the best part about this card, right? Because that's going to allow you to cast a bunch more colorless spells and exile more things. So that 0 getting 3 colorless mana is incredible. And then the -11, search your library for any number of colors, non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Till end of turn, you can cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So this basically is like get all of your colorless cards from your deck. You can cast them all like right away or wait. And that will exile their board as well. So if you get 5 things, 5 colorless cards. So if you do get an ultimate with this, you get your whole deck, you lay your whole deck, you exile the whole opponent's side of the board. So obviously incredible ultimate, and it's not too impossible being that it starts at 7. So, Okay. Elspeth Stormslayer. If one or more tokens will be created under your control, twice as many tokens are created. So I love that line of text, always fun. This is a 5 mana Elspeth that starts with 5 loyalty. I like that it has a cheap ultimate, which I'll get to, but the 0 is put a counter on each creature you control. They gain flying until your next turn. So that's pretty good, because you're going to want to play this in a deck where you go wide with a bunch of white weenies and stuff, and you put a counter on all of them, they gain flying. That can end the game right there. That's a 0 that ends the game. And remember, you're creating twice as many tokens with that passive, so that's great. Your plus is also creating 2 soldiers. So everything synergizes very well so far, and then the -3 is destroy target creature and opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. 3 or greater. So the scarier things, right? It's not 3 or less. So that's actually really good too. You have removal. You have token generation that triggers with its passive. You have a way of ending the game with the 0. This is a great planeswalker. This is fantastic, in my opinion. Okay, so now we're down to the weird looking art, but they're cool. They're cool. If the cards actually look like this, that's kind of funny. I like it though. It's like simple, but it's good. Now this is cool because it's a 3 mana, so Anafenza. You get the Spirit Soldier, it's legendary. Flash First Strike, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you endure 2. So endure is you either put 2 counters on it, because it's endure 2, or you create a 2/2 white spirit token. So if it's endure 3, it's 3 counters, or a 3/3 spirit token. Now, the spirit tokens don't have flying. That would be a lot better. A little bit more aggressive, right? But the Flash First Strike is nice, because say you have like one creature that you just throw in front of a big scary guy, you Flash First Strike and take out another one with that first strike is great. So you're taking out one of their guys, one of your dudes dies, this guy then becomes bigger, and you can probably block that same creature next turn, or you just get another 2/2. So not incredible, but good, right? Like not incredible, but good. That's about it. Okay, United Battlefront. This card looked interesting to me. So it's a 4 mana sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. 7's a good dig. Put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanents with mana value 3 or less from among them on the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So if you build your deck the right way, 7 cards again is a big dig. You should be able to hit 2, but maybe you don't, and you just hit 1, that might feel a little bad, but it's still 4 mana to return at least 1 good thing, which isn't the worst thing, but you definitely want to be hitting 2. So you have to build your deck in a very specific way. But if you do hit 2, you're definitely going up on mana value, and I think it's actually pretty good. It's not a permanent that, if this was like a permanent that had the same effect, that could be better for a number of different reasons. But just a good card all around. It's not like, I don't think, gonna take over standard, but it's good. Yeah, it's playable. All right, Voice of Victory. Hopefully the pace I'm going is okay. I don't want to be too quick or too slow. Hard to know. So Voice of Victory is a 2-mana 1/3 human bard. I find this interesting. It has Mobilize, another set mechanic here. Whenever it attacks, you create 2 tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. Kind of interesting. And you have to sacrifice them. So, right, that's kind of good because it does have the line of text, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So I would imagine this in like an Orzhov list that wants guys to die anyway, and those 2 things swinging don't really matter. But you can also, have these guys swinging and lay like a, maybe you have an Anthem just sitting there, or you have a pump spell for all your guys. So you can have some big combat swings. It does have a 3 toughness. If this was like a 1/4, it'd be a lot better because it could survive a lot more things. The 3 toughness isn't quite high enough, I think, to make this incredible, but it is only a 2 mana card. So again, you'd want this in a deck where you're probably playing black and you want the things to die anyway. Not incredible, but good. A lot of cards are very well balanced, I think, well designed, from what I've seen so far. Now this card looks a lot cooler than the last one. This is a 2-mana blue and colorless human monk, Taigam, the Master Opportunist. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy it, then exile the spell you cast with 4 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. So suspend is like right at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove time counters. Once you remove that 4th one, then you get to cast the spell again. Meanwhile, though, you do copy it, right? So you're basically getting the effect you want on the turn that you're trying to lay it, and then later you get a second copy. So it's like a slowed down copy machine, right? It is a 2/2 with no keywords, though, so you definitely have to build your deck around this, but I think it's not impossible to do that. It doesn't force you to play 2 colors either, so I think it's good. And human monks, great creature types. For commander, I would imagine that's really nice too. Okay, so now we're getting down to a little bit, like we're about to hit the dragons in a second. So, okay, so this is a, Scavenger Nighthawk or something like this, but now it's a 3/3 flying Death Touch lifelink. I think that's different. Maybe that's the same. But it does have Renew. You can exile this card from your graveyard, and then you put one of its keywords onto one of the creatures. You get a counter for flying, Death Touch, or lifelink. So that's kind of cool. Being that's a counter actually matters for some synergy with other cards. But you just have a nice, good creature that can lifelink in the air each turn. If they do have a big flyer, at least you're going to take it out without Death Touch. And then later on, you have an extra play out of it for the same CMC. And that could be really good. That could be huge. You could put this on a small little dude with Death Touch to block their big scary things. Or, right, you have a huge guy and just gain a bunch of life with the lifelink. So the flexibility and modality of this card is fantastic. This is a good one. And that art is sick, dude. That art is cool. That's a weird one. Qarsi Revenant. Okay. Sidisi, the Regent of the Mire. Kind of cool art. He looks a little ugly, though. So what you have here, though, are some funny creature types. You have a 2-mana Zombie Snake Warlock. Cool. You can sacrifice a creature you control with mana value X other than Sidisi. Hang on, wait. I thought I knew what this said before. With mana value X other... Oh, so it just... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it couldn't be her CMC. I'm stupid. It just... You can't sacrifice her. Return target creature with mana value X +1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you go up on CMC. That's great. It's cool too because like this is a black card. You're going to play this in a deck where you typically want your creatures to probably die for a number of different reasons. So you're going up on CMC, and if you build your curve in the right way, you can get cards that are bigger that also synergize with the little guys that you started with being in the bin. So cool card all around. I like this a lot. Nothing fancy. It is legendary though, making it not incredible, but CDC is fun. I could definitely see that being fun. Okay, so we have a Cratorhoof in standard. Yeah, dude. So it's a 8 mana Cratorhoof Behemoth. Actually, really cool art on this one. I like the just huge forest all over this guy, right? Haste 5/5. When it enters, creatures you control gain trample. And get XX till end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So, game ender, you have another copy for the Cratorhoof fans out there. Trample is massive, and if you have 4 creatures and they all get +4/+4, that's typically enough to end things in standard. And obviously this is just bonkers in Commander, but yeah, not much more to say about this guy. The beast creature type's a little lame. We don't really have much beast support. But, yeah, that card exists. All Out Assault. Cool. Enchantment, Mardu, 5 mana. A little expensive already, a little skeptical. It is a mythic, though, right? So creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. Whenever this enchantment enters, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase, followed by an additional main phase. So if you have cards that trigger on main phase or something, which aren't so common, that could be cool. And also combat swings, obviously. When you next attack, you untap each creature you control. So you are getting 2 full combats out because you do untap your creatures. They do get an Anthem, so hopefully you want to just connect. But the Death Touch makes this really good because it's sort of like forcing the damage. And if you just have a bunch of little guys, they're at least trading up. So this is good, but is this going to really be in standard decks? I don't know. Something tells me no. Maybe 5 mana is just 1 mana too expensive. But it is an enchantment that just gives your guys +1/+1 at Death Touch for the rest of the thing, too. So it's not just the combat, the extra combat that you're getting. You're also just getting an Anthem with Death Touch, which is cool. So the fact that it sits there is good. But again, at 5 mana, is that just 1 turn too slow? Because Mardu typically can't ramp very well. It could be. Commander, though, bet you could do some fun things there with an extra combat. Okay, so now we're on to the Spirit Dragons. Most of them here. Okay. This guy is cool. This one stood out to me probably the most. You do have a 5 mana Spirit Dragon with flying. It's legendary. Betor, kin to all. 5/7 flying. At the beginning of your end step, if creatures you control have total toughness 10 or greater, you draw a card. So you need 1 more creature in addition to this guy with toughness 3 to start drawing cards at your end step. Okay. Then, if creatures you control have toughness 20 or greater, you untap each creature you control. So you obviously are drawing a card still at that point, but you do get to untap them as well, so you can start getting aggressive at 20. Then, if creatures you control have total toughness 40 or greater, meaning you're just sort of so winning the game, each opponent loses half their life rounded up. So there's definitely some fun build rounds, and we do actually have toughness matter decks that exist in standard. We have some good turtles and things. There's also that like crocodile card that you can pump mana into to make him hit for a surprising amount of damage. This can be good, right? Because they lose half their life a single time in either format, standard or commander. Then if any of those guys you have connect, they're kind of dead. And to have 40 or toughness greater, like you do have a good amount of creatures on the board. So if you do get to that 40 or greater, then obviously you're pretty much winning the game. It might be a little win more, but it is just also a 5/7 flying dragon in Abzan colors, which might be a little awkward, but it's only 5 mana. So this is actually pretty good. Fun build around. Yeah, if this is your commander, you could build a killer deck with this guy. I would love to see that because these are fun colors in and of themselves. Codis. Oh, this guy is interesting here. Okay, this guy is really interesting. So you have a 4 mana Codis the Fangkeeper, legendary zombie warrior. He has indestructible. So what's the catch? When he deals combat damage to a player, you exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. Then you can cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them. So this typically, right, this is interesting because you do have blue, which can give like unblockability, which is good. And you do have green, right, which can get this guy to be bigger. So say you pump him up to 5, right? And he has unblockability, which is like 2 card investment in addition to this guy. But he does have indestructible, so maybe they don't have exile, and that can actually happen. But if you do 5 damage, then you're exiling the top 5, which is pretty crazy, because you are stealing their cards too. So it is a little matchup dependent, but you could cast 5 cards potentially in that situation. So typically, like in standard, they're not running more than like CMC 5 or more. Maybe you have a land or 2 in there realistically. So maybe you're just casting 3 cards, but you're still getting like 3 free cards off of that. Again, you do have to set this guy up, but very cool, and honestly kind of a cool commander for what it's worth. Anything with indestructible is very interesting, especially when you have blue to sort of protect it, black to bring it back from the graveyard. Very good colors for this effect. I like this guy. I think it's a fun design. Absolutely. Okay, Nariv, another Spirit Dragon. This one is a Mardu, 4 mana total casting cost. I cannot talk. You get a legendary creature. Again, Spirit Dragon, flying, 4/5 guy. If a creature you control that entered this turn would deal damage, it deals twice that much damage instead. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that you need haste. Like, you know, this guy himself doesn't have haste, which would be really good. I don't even think it would be like broken. But if you have a bunch of ways of giving haste, then they can do twice as much damage. Typically, haste guys aren't that big though, and they can likely get blocked in the mid game. I don't think this one's that good. It looks tempting, but this is probably the worst of the Spirit Dragons, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Not sold on it. First impressions was not sold, but it's a 4 mana 4/5 flying dragon, and red is also in the casting cost, so that's important. Okay, you have Temur Battlecrier here. This one's actually kind of good, but here's the thing. So for Temur colors, you have a 3 mana 4/3 Orc Ranger. During your turn, the spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So the thing is, if you are playing Temur, right, then you probably have cards that have at least 1 or 2 colors in their casting cost. So you can't obviously reduce those pips. But if you have a bunch of like 4 and 5 mana cards, you can at least reduce it by like 2. This guy himself does have power 4 or greater. This might be better than I'm giving it credit for, because immediately, right, once you lay this guy, you've already lessened the casting cost of some cards in your deck. But of course, I can't get rid of the pips. So I think this is just a little tricky to build around. But I'm not saying it's bad by any means. And I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a chance this card could be really, really good, depending on what kind of decks shape up in this color combination. But yeah, you know, the power 4 or greater, we have a lot of support for that specific archetype. So I could see this guy being pretty damn good. And it's any spell. It's not just creatures. So yeah, actually pretty good. Pretty damn good card. Okay. Tevel, the Arbiter of Virtue. You have a 5 mana Sultai Spirit Dragon. It's legendary. You get a 6/6. That's pretty good. It also has an extra keyword. You have flying and lifelink. Okay. The lifelink is to compensate for the last line of text, which is kind of weird. Spells you cast have Delve. So, okay, so this will obviously allow you to pop off like the next turn, because you can just exile cards from your bin. And you do have the exact colors you want to mill yourself. The 3 best colors at doing that, I would say. Whenever you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana value, though. So even though you're casting a whole bunch of stuff, like in standard, you only start with 20 life. So if you cast 2 spells after this, so they're like a 4-drop, maybe a 5-drop, you just took 9 damage. And then maybe you're counting on compensating for that with swinging in with the lifelink, but maybe they remove him after you've done that. And then they remove your guy that's going to combat. You have your guys, but now it's their turn. And then they could swing and crack back after you've already lost life. So I think it's standard. This might be a little bit of a trap But Delve is cool. People love Delve. Commander, you have more life to work with. So this is obvious. This is a card that's much better in Commander than it is in Standard. So cool card. I'm not going to be playing with it though, or spending a mythic on this guy anytime soon, I don't think. It's a cool design though, and the art is killer. Yeah, cool. So we're getting through this. I'll probably go faster as we approach the end with the uncommons and commons. Okay, you have an 8 mana Teamer color, Ureni the Song Unending. So this is relying on ramp in Teamer colors here. You get a Spirit Dragon, legendary. It's a 10/10. Now this is cool, kind of, because you get protection from white and black. So if you're in best of 3 and you sideboard in this guy, maybe against Orzhov or whatever, hard to deal with this. Now it does have enters trigger. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponents control, where X is the number of lands you control. So unless you're using mana dorks, at minimal you're doing X damage when he enters, or you're doing 8 damage rather to all of their stuff. So you could take out a wide board, you could take out a huge big creature, and maybe a little 1/1. So the flexibility on this is good. You can't hit planeswalkers too. And there's also the chance that you lay this even past 8 lands for even more deadliness. But really that protection from white and black, I think, is what makes this, playable at 8 mana. If you're in a ramp deck and you're against Orzhov and you're playing best of 3, this could be an option. And it's not too bad. Like, you get a 10/10 flyer. So that's pretty good. You could cheat this guy out, right? That's not lost on me. So that's good. And even if you cheat it out on like turn 4, you're still doing 4 damage. Taking out 2 2/2s, a big guy, 4 toughness guy. The later you lay it though, it becomes better. Interesting card. Very interesting. Okay, so I think that's all the Spirit Dragons. But we do have some other dragons, of course. Another one being Meringue River Regent. Okay, so this is 6 mana. It's mono blue. This is actually really cool. Now, I haven't talked about Omen yet, but it's an instance for 4 mana called Coil and Catch for the adventure half. But it's also an Omen subtype. So there's some cards that we should see, and I imagine more will be released, that care about Omen. So just keep that in mind. Draw 3 cards and discard a card. That's not incredible for 4 mana, but the fact that you also have the second half, in one card is what makes that good. Typically people that are like newer to the game, myself included, when Throne of Eldraine released and we really saw adventure cards, I undervalued the first half of a lot of them. But being that it's attached right to another card, it's really good. So you get a 6/7 flyer. For 6 mana, when this creature enters, return up to 2 other non-land permanents to the opponent's hands. So that's really good because you're like bouncing 2 of their biggest things. So the tempo is kind of massive there, right? Like a 5-drop and maybe one of their 4-drops or 6-drops, right? That's a huge, that's like 9 or 10 or 11 mana that you're bouncing, ideally. But even if it's just smaller things or tokens, you just kill the tokens, right? And you do get a 6/7 flyer. That's good. And again, you get that first half. So this is good for control decks. You're not really going to be playing this in things outside of control. Maybe like a 1-of sneaks in here and there for some deck lists. But great card for decks that want the game to go longer, right? Yeah, we like this. Okay, hopefully I cut my cough out of the video there. Sorry. Now what you have here, Bloomvine Regent, awesome art. Looking a little fleshy though. But you get a 5 mana dragon on the main half, and then you have the adventure half, which also is an Omen. So there should be an Omen, at least one, in each color at the rare spot, I think. They're also dragons. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards. Reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield, and 1 to your hand. Okay, so that's cool because you do get immediate ramp, and then you have another land for next turn. So that's good. You can easily cast this guy the turn after the first half. So they're working together very well. And you get a 4/5 flyer. Whenever this creature or another dragon control enters, you gain 3 life. That's kind of good. That's kind of good. Now, this is an unusual dragon, being that it's mono green and that it's about gaining life and having the gain. You know, it's not like explosive damage as most dragons typically are. But very cool design. I like this one a lot. It's just very clean. It's just a very clean card that works very well with itself. And gaining life is better than it looks. Maybe not in green, but again, keeping you alive against the fast pace of the meta currently. So that's those dragons that we've seen. There's some uncommon stuff. We're gonna get into one of the more crazy cards in a second, but we've already looked at this one. This is the that's the alternate art of. We've looked at that one. Huh, interesting. I don't think there's too many copies like that we've seen so far. Maybe there is though. Frostcliff Siege at this. Okay, it's a 3 mana, just blue and a red and a whatever. For an enchantment, when it enters, choose Jeskai or Teamer. So one of these, when the Jeskai half is whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So that's pretty good. If you know that you're going to have a successful swing, you could draw like 3 or 4 cards off of that, right? And then the Teamer half, creatures you control get +1 attack, have trample, and haste. So that's kind of good, because maybe you set up the board to where you're creating tokens at the beginning of your upkeep or something. So you can give them haste. Trample is massive. Not a huge buff, just +1, but it could matter in the right board. In Jeskai, there are some create token decks that haven't been so popular recently, but they are out there if you're willing to build up. Now the thing is, this only happened once. It's not at the beginning of your end step like the other one is, the Barrensteppe or whatever the hell that I actually just hovered. So you only get 1 shot with this. So it's not like Enduring Curiosity, which sits there until it's removed, and then when it is removed, if it's not exiled, it comes back to the battlefield as an enchantment. So Enduring Curiosity is obviously a lot better. It is 1 more mana, but this is a one-time effect. I don't like this. I don't like this that much. I don't know. I'm not excited by this. Guess I'm quick with that one today. Okay. Rediscover the Way. For Jeskai, look at the top 3 cards of your library. So the first 2 levels are the same, right? So you get a 3-card dig. You put 1 to your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So for 3 mana investment, you get 2 chances to look at the top 3, get the best card out of the top 3. That's good. And then for the final 3rd one, whenever you cast a non-creature spell this turn, target creature you control will get double strike till end of turn. So, that's pretty good. You can lay this early, but maybe you lay it even slightly past the point of the 3rd turn. And then on turn 5, 6, or 7, it flips over. Or maybe it's 6, 7, or 8. You can't really do math. Realistically, though. Which is a long game of Magic. But say you set up your board with a bunch of creatures, and you give 4 of them double strike, and maybe some of them are flyers. So that should end the game. This is a 3 mana card that gets you some pretty darn good card advantage. 6 card dig in total, getting the 2 best cards out of those. You're drawing a card in between as well, so you can make a more educated decision for the second trigger. And then, double strike's kind of serious. That's pretty darn good. Flyers will take advantage of that the best, and there are some red creatures, since red's in here, that have trample and stuff naturally. So, pretty good colors for this. Awesome art. All around good card, I would say. I love sagas, and this is a good saga as far as they come. Yeah, dude. Alright, so now we're down to some less important cards, and I'm going to make sure we don't look at the same cards that we've looked at, because there's some copies here. Okay, so Durger, Island Dragon, Wowzers, Bowsers. So you get a 6 mana Flying Ward 2 4/4. Not so crazy for 6 mana. This is mostly a drafty card, but you do have an Omen, right? They all sort of do this. Skimming Strike for 2 mana. You can tap 1 target creature, so preventing a big combat step potentially, and drawing a card for 2 mana. That's pretty good, being that you have a creature on the second half. Nothing amazing here. I'm going to try to go quicker now. Yeah, we haven't seen this one yet. When this enchantment enters, so for 2 mana, Roiling Dragonstorm. It's an enchantment. Whenever it enters, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Whenever a dragon you control enters, you can return this to your hand. So it's kind of like a 2-card filter that you can repeat, but you still have to recast it, and you do need dragons to enter. So in a slowed down dragon deck, this could be some much needed card draw, but I don't think this is incredible. You probably just play better blue cards that just draw you more cards. And even though it's kind of cute with the dragon synergy, I'm not so sold on it. Guess I'll say that much. Yeah, so we haven't seen there. Yeah, interesting. Like, I don't know how they ordered this on Scryfall or arranged it, but Corroding Dragonstorm. This is a cool name for 2 mana, 1 black, 1 of anything. You get an enchantment. When it enters, target opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. But you do Surveil 2, which is good. And then whenever a dragon enters, you can return this enchantment to the owner's hand. So you're probably going to be playing this in like a Rakdos deck. And you want to Surveil. And you want to put big dragons into your bin. And then you want to reanimate them. So the Surveil 2 is the best part of the card. And you can do this over and over again. And what's kind of better about this one is it just has a more explosive... It's just like... It sets you up for winning the game more. The other one just kind of keeps you alive and helps you draw through your deck a little bit more. And I know drawing cards is good. But you also have a 4-life drain here. Which is respectable for something that's already kind of doing something, right? Surveil. If it was like Surveil 3, it might be busted wide open. It's not crazy, but it's good. It is a good card. I like this one a lot more than the last one. Okay, so if you haven't seen this yet, you have an Omniscience for dragons. Now, here's the thing. Omniscience is 8 mana, right? Is it 9? I don't know. So maybe it's 1 mana cheaper. I don't know why I don't know that, because I have deck text and stuff with Omniscience, and I've made sure it's... so excuse me, I'm an idiot. So here's the thing. You'd only play this if you're 100% devoted to dragons, and you also have a way of cheating this out. Because if you get to 8 mana in your dragon deck, you typically just want to be slapping down dragons, right? You want to try to win the game faster. And then by the time you do lay this, you've already probably kind of got rid of most of your hand. And there's a chance that you do end up laying this and you don't even have a dragon in your hand. Just a little clunky. Abuelo's Awakening is in standard, so you can take advantage of cheating out this enchantment that way. There's other ways of doing it as well, but that's the cheapest one to my knowledge. So you could turn for this, and then with this card and maybe Abuelo's Awakening being your only other cards that aren't dragons in your deck, maybe like that new 2 mana Sarkon as well. And then at that point you get like 4 or 5 big dragons for freezy beesies. Yeah, you should win the game in that sense. So this is exciting in Commander. This is obviously insane with a lot more ways to cheat it out and a lot more dragons to choose from. In Standard, it might do something, but Omniscience hasn't done as much as we thought it would either. But it is good. It is good. In fact, I think the featured video on my channel still is probably the Omniscience deck, unless I change that. That deck's insane. We could draw through our whole deck and lay our whole deck in 1 turn, and it's a best of 3 with a great sideboard with Season of Discovery. Absolutely incredible combo-y deck there. Okay, so let me just make sure. These are some really cool art that I kind of want to click on to show you, but I don't want to waste your time too much. So we haven't seen this one. Okay. Purging Storm Brood here. Now this is interesting because the Omen cost is different than the... Well, it's black and 4 for Purging Storm Brood. It's a 4/4 flying with Ward 2. Ward pay 2 life. Sorry, when this creature enters, you remove all counters from up to one target creature. So that can be good. You can actually kill some things. Maybe the Sunfall token, right? Things like that. But it's awkward. I don't know how much. Like, you could sideboard this in against counters decks, I guess. And you'd kind of have to be playing that. You'd have to do that in an Orzhov deck as well, or else you won't be able to take advantage of Absorb Essence. 1 and a white. It's an omen. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink and hexproof till end of turn. Now, the hexproof part is really, really good because you have protection that can keep it alive, and you give it +2/+2 and lifelink, so maybe they won't want to swing after that as well. You could also do this offensively, especially if you're trying to remove your guy on your turn, so then you blow out their removal spell while getting a bigger swing out of it with some life. So this is just kind of an awkward card, a little bit drafty. I don't think this is going to be in the top decks anytime soon, but I guess I haven't really looked at that one yet, so it took me a second. This is a draft card for 5 mana. It is a colorless card, so keep in mind that Ugin might want this. Probably not, though. 3/3 for 5 mana. Flying Vigilance. Whenever this creature attacks, surveil 1. Now, the only thing about Boulderborn Dragon here is it is an artifact creature, so you could cheat it out with some artifact stuff. But pretty bad. Pretty bad. Yep. We haven't looked at this one yet. We've looked at all of those. Cool art, though. That's cool art there, too. Okay, so we haven't looked at this. It's a new land. It's a rare. Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. You can add 1 mana of any color. You can spend this mana only to cast a dragon spell or omen spell. Oh, what do you know? It came up. Yeah, wowzers. 4 mana, you can tap it to sacrifice this land and get any dragon card from your deck, put it into your hand. So that's kind of good, even though, a little expensive maybe for a search. You are going down on 1 land, so maybe you can't get the biggest dragon in the world because you might not be able to cast it. But in the meanwhile, it allows you to play multiple color dragon decks pretty easily, take advantage of their omens as well, and at the very minimal, you can at least just get a colorless out of it, so it's not going to be like dead, really. I think this is good. Because even though it's expensive for the search, you still get a dragon card, and you only do that when you know you can cast it realistically, right? So you'd only do that like late in the game, but sometimes late in the game, something like this can save you. This is good. It's well designed, it's balanced, it's not busted. I like it. Cool. Okay, let me just make sure. So the promos, I think, are part of they should be standard legal unless I'm completely crazy. But cool art here. Yeah, let me just talk about them anyway, just in case. Yeah, they should be. I actually don't know, really. But for 5 mana, you get Static Snare here. It's an enchantment with flash. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. So when it enters, you exile target artifact or creature the opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. So once it leaves, they do get it back. Sometimes those aren't as crazy. But if they attack you with 3 guys, then this is just a 2 mana card. And it also is establishing a permanent, being that it's an enchantment. So that could matter for a number of reasons. Like, obviously, the enchantment Zur deck with the Overlords is crazy. So you could turn this into a lifelink Death Touch hexproof, harder to remove, keeping the guy alive, all that stuff. Yeah, cool card. This can be 1 mana to exile their big scariest creature. Or artifact, I guess. So that's pretty good. Okay, Roiling Dragonstorm. When this enchantment enters, you draw 2 cards. Then you discard a card. Wowzers. Oh, we already looked at this one. I'm sorry. I don't really like that one. This we haven't seen. Target opponent exiles a creature they control and their graveyard. Hallelujah. Now that is a 2 mana sideboard card if I've ever seen one. Strategic Betrayal. Cool. Now this Harmonize is interesting. So you get a sorcery for 1 mana, 2 damage to any target. Okay, so it's like a sorcery speed shock. So for 7 mana, you can cast this card from your graveyard for its harmonized cost. You may tap a creature you control to reduce X, where X is its power. So you can, if you have a 5 power guy, you can tap him down to then cast this card for just 2 reds, which is kind of nice. But it's not like you're planning on that being your win con, but it can get you out of a pickle. Maybe a Deep Cavern Bat has a card that you absolutely need to get back. So you could do that in that sense. So it's just some upside at the sacrifice of sorcery speed. I think that's cool. I think it's well designed. We haven't seen this one yet. Okay. Encroaching Dragonstorm. When this enchantment enters, you get 2 basic land cards. You can search them, put them onto the battlefield. So we've seen many effects like this. But whenever a dragon neutral enters, you return this enchantment to its owner's hand. So if you have some huge late game stuff like that 8 mana Teamer Dragon that we saw, this card can very particularly help you get set up for that. And the more lands you have, so even if you start like flooding, again, his enter the battlefield trigger sort of wipes the board based on the lands you have. So this is definitely a nice setup for that guy in particular. And maybe you're playing this in Doppelgang. In Enchantment, in Commander, you obviously have some larger CMC stuff that is more prominent. So this can help you set up there for your Dragon decks. It's kind of cool to see a Dragon-centric. This is a good one. Definitely better than the blue one. I'm not a big fan of the blue one. I don't know why. We definitely saw Battle Crier, Power 4 Greater. This, I guess I should have looked at this because this is all the basic land or basic things. So I'm at the point. Do I want to show all the commons and uncommons and stuff? I'm looking at them. There's none that are like Bowsers. There was like one that seemed pretty good at the uncommon. Like this is good, right? You have a 2 mana dork in red that can help you cast stuff later. And you can take out a dragon with 6 damage to target creature with flying. So a 2 mana 3/1 creature that can tap to help ramp you. Like this is a good one. This stood out to me. And you also have, you know what? I think the thing here is I don't want the video to get too long because I am a small channel, and the longer it goes, the less retention, harder to push the video, all of that. So I hope you forgive me. We do get the gain 1 life stuff going on. The dual lands, we already have those, but now there's more if you want just a bunch of life gain triggers. You can sort of just flood your whole mana base with that. I bet there's a gimmicky, stupid deck that sort of builds around that. There's some artifacts that help you search 1 of 3 basic lands and stuff with like an upside where you get like tokens out of them here. Like this one the Teamer one makes a 5/5 elephant. This one makes a 2/2 black zombie. This one makes 3 1/1s. 2 2/2s, 3 1/1s. And then this is 2 white birds for the Jeskai one. We didn't really miss anything too important. This card doesn't seem that good. You can like double up counters on some of your guys. It has menace. Yeah, I think we looked at most of the cards. We're definitely not going over all of them like I said I would at the beginning, so I hope you don't hate me. But I'm actually starving at the moment. But thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you did, you're a real one. It means the world to me. I actually already recorded a deck tech that is the Insidious Roots plus Moonshaker Cavalry combo that I have done in the past. But Aether Drift did give us some newer cards that are pretty awesome. And it's just sort of my second coming of that deck with a sideboard this time for best of 3. And it's really fun to play that deck, so I thought I'd do it again. So I should have that video out either later today, most likely tomorrow morning though, so I can space these out at least. And I should have a short coming out today as well. So if you're new around here, hopefully you subscribe. If not, have a beautiful rest of your day. And I love you. I'm excited for this set. This is a true Magic set, man. No more race stuff. It'll prepare us for the Final Fantasy, which is actually cool, to be honest. That one's cool. And the SpongeBob coming down the way. I don't know how to feel about the SpongeBob set, part of me is like, if they're cool cards, they're cool cards, but it's a little hard to swallow. You know, it's a little hard to swallow. Again, sorry for my absence recently. I should be getting more and more consistent. Again, I promise. I really do. Life's just been weird. Take care, you guys. Much love.